And hello, everyone. My name is Cenk Kalpakoglu. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Kondukto. And today I'm going to discuss, in this presentation, I'm going to discuss how we can effectively use application security metrics to get the management buy-in or the support from upper managers or even the other stakeholders. So as an application security leader, one of the most significant challenges that you might face is securing and management support, obviously, besides ensuring how secure your applications are. Usually, this lack of support often results in under-resourced security teams feel frustrated and unable to make a meaningful impact. Building a compelling narrative around those metrics and the alignment with the organizational goals can greatly facilitate the management support and for success for our security program. And even if you have the right metrics, getting those supports could be a challenge. So I'm trying to discover and discuss how we can use some metrics and how we can effectively communicate those metrics to the support we need, because security is a teamwork. So let me briefly introduce myself. As I mentioned, my name is Cenk Kalpakoglu. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Kondukto. Kondukto is a modern application sector orchestration and posture management platform. And during our time at Kondukto, we had the opportunity to work with different organizations in all over the world. And while working with different teams, different business needs, we have seen a common pattern. And while the application security programs are struggling, and that's why we gather some data, and with this opportunity, we would like to discuss which metrics might be give you a better advantage at helping hand to increase the effectiveness of our program. So yeah, let's start. So obviously, first I'm going to start which application security metrics matter from that context. Actually, our business context and our business needs should change the approach that we take while building a security program. Usually, the threat modeling stage is where we decide those approaches. But regardless to our business context, having metrics will definitely help us with those following items. And the first one is the measured progress. Right metrics should give the direction or should show the direction of our security program effectiveness. And that's why we understand what we need, how we need, and where we need. And I think the most important item while building the security program or metrics is the able to identify the bottlenecks. With the data we have, we can identify which part of our security program is failing or is struggling, which resources is needed, where the extra resources needed, and we will discuss how we can find those bottlenecks. Right now, we are struggling. Actually, this security is getting more and more complex, and security engineers are always working in understaffed environment, and we need to deal lots of noises, lots of data. So, but the advantage of this approach is we have lots of data, and by analyzing those data, we can actually create data-driven decisions, and this could help us to identify or create better decision-making processes. And finally, building trust is an important aspect to create to security program. Since we have the data, we can share with the other stakeholders which part of our ecosystem is having issues and getting good results, and showing those trustworthy data, we can share the need within the organizations. Actually, while preparing for this presentation, I prepared a couple important metrics that we have seen in while working with big enterprises. First, I will discuss 4 important metrics with you. But after discussing those important metrics, I put a couple more metrics within the sake of this event. Actually, those items are all we just discussed in the roundtable as well. So I'm going to discuss together with you with some of the items that you just watched on the previously. So first, I'm going to discuss the triage percentage with you. What this triage percentage means, and why this triage percentage, keeping track of the triage percentage of each month, could help us. We have seen that this metric is particularly important to figure out the bottlenecks on our security program, and it helps us to decrease the backlog that we have, which is the common struggle that we see all security teams are having regardless of their business context. The second metrics that I'm going to discuss is the missed SLAs. Actually, keep track of SLAs are the most common metric that we have seen, and everybody is actually trying to do good job with the keep tracking those SLAs. But the funny part of SLAs are not everyone is calculating SLAs similarly. So each organization may have slightly different approaches, and we will discuss how we can keep track of those SLAs even if we have different approach. In the third part afterwards, I will share the vulnerability burn down chart and why it's a great metric to understand the efficiency, how our team is doing well. And I'm sure this is also one of the most common metric that you see on your system as well. And finally, I will discuss remediation metrics. What I mean remediation metrics is also very related with the SLAs because the calculation of SLAs is also reflects our remediation approaches as well. And after those ones, I have few more metrics that I will discuss and I will show. The first one is the triage percentage. This metric, as I mentioned, this metric is particularly important for us to identify the potential bottlenecks in our triage process, because we may have bottlenecks in different part of our organizations, different part of our application security program, but one of the most common struggle in the application security program is the increasing backlog. So let's consider this. Let's consider this scenario. If you only able to triage 10% of new vulnerabilities each month, this means that 90% of the reported vulnerabilities are not being assessed as a real threat. And if you keep doing that, you will have an increased huge backlog, which either will create a problem on your application security program, it will create an issue on your team, or alternatively, if you force your developers to solve those vulnerabilities, again, this is going to be a problem with your security teams and development teams. We have discussed that security is a teamwork, and security teams should be enabled in this process. However, if you bomb your developers with the huge backlog, then this is going to be a problem for everyone. So that's why keeping track of how many vulnerabilities are getting triaged and how many are not getting triaged can help you understand which part of your software development lifecycle is failing or security program is failing, and you can also prioritize what kind of vulnerabilities, which categories on your security program, and this is going to be a huge advantage. So as you can see in this presentation, this is the usually breakdown. Usually teams tend to solve the critical vulnerabilities first, but again, this drill down can make you understand better decision making, better approaches, maybe new automations on your security tooling, maybe the overall program itself. The second metric that I want to discuss is the vulnerability burn down chart. Overall, the vulnerability burn down chart helps us understand how many true positive vulnerabilities are getting introduced versus how many of them getting closed. Again, usually security teams tend to show those metrics regardless to considering the closed vulnerabilities or even issued vulnerabilities. We know that right now, to ensure a good security practice, we need to use multiple solutions, and multiple solutions will create multiple noise, multiple items, multiple findings. And we know that this process requires lots of work on it because we have many false positive vulnerabilities. But having this burn down chart can help us to understand what kind of vulnerabilities are getting closed and why are getting closed. If you can keep track of them is even good. And you can, if you can filter those graphs, you can also understand, or you can set policies what kind of vulnerability should be closed first as well. So that's why vulnerability burn down charts is usually great chart to understand how well our security team is doing and how our direction, basically our direction. I tend to consider this vulnerability breakdown chart as a compass on my security program. The third metric that I want to discuss is the most common metric that I've seen in the successful teams is the keep track of SLAs. The calculation of SLAs is slightly different from each teams, or maybe it can change because of the maturity of your organizations. But keeping track of SLAs is important because you provide a grace period for your team and for your developers grace period to understand to follow those processes. Depending on how your SLAs calculate organizations, a deteriorated metric and worsened metric can be sign of a need of extra resources on your triage or your remediation stage. If you want to solve those on your remediation stage, you may have different approach. Maybe you can speak with your development teams to assign a security champion. This could be an option. Maybe you can create a policy for certain type of vulnerabilities, and you can try to solve those vulnerabilities on your PRs, on MRs. So meaning that the SLA, keep tracking of SLAs is going to be a good approach, and it can give us a map where or how those vulnerabilities should be solved. But this is tricky because for some organizations, SLA starts when the vulnerabilities has been identified or reported, and in the meantime, for some organizations, the SLA starts when the developers are started to work on it. And if you don't have a bidirectional mechanism, bidirectional graph with your issue managers, this could be hard to understand. And this is where we go in the remediation metrics. Usually, we recently see that security teams tend to keep the track of the remediation efforts. And what we have done is that by integrating the data, by getting data, by feeding our system with the issue managers, the effort of the developers can be also traced, and we can have a very good understanding when the remediation start. And we can drill down in 3 different subcategories. The first one is first-time response. If you are agile organizations, the first time to response could also be this starting point of your SLAs, because this is the time that we know the vulnerability. The second approach could be the first time to action. First time to action means that when the developer started to work on that particular vulnerabilities. Again, having the drill down of those metrics can give you an understanding which vulnerabilities are tend to close more from the developer perspective. I particularly keep track of like this metric to keep track of the developer understanding, because this also give us the overall security maturity of the developers, because developers tend to solve easy or more common vulnerabilities regardless the severity. So that's why maybe you can adjust or fine tune your automation, and maybe you can address the critical vulnerabilities first instead of sending all the issues that your tools identify. And finally, the time to resolution can give you a very good rough timeline uh, uh, about a vulnerability lifecycle. What I mean is that if you know a time to resolution or rough timing of any vulnerability, you can understand that how many days of delays your security efforts creates, and you can even monetize or assign monetary values to understand the security issues creates on your development posture. So that's why the remediation, keep track of remediation efforts is super important approach to taking. The other security metrics that I want to discuss clearly is all about the false sense of security. We have seen that most of the time security teams may not aware all the projects or all the applications in our organizations. So that's why they don't know, if they don't know the coverage, they don't really know how secure their organizations are. So that's why keep track of the coverage, and even the period of the development period of that particular applications can give you a very good understanding about all those items. And the automation, and it is very easy to solve these problems. The automation actually is the answer to solve the testing coverage. If you can automate the coverage process, you don't miss anything basically. By the way, this is one of the common items that we see in this aspect. The next item, actually, this is also discussed during the roundtable. The half of the developers, they don't receive any cybersecurity training or application security training at all, and giving them just a little bit security training will increase your posture dramatically. Gamification is one of the key aspects. The interactive security training program try to achieve this. But if you can have a developer level or team level data, and if you know what kind of vulnerabilities are usually introduced into system in which teams, you can assign those people relevant vulnerabilities, which increase the awareness of those teams. Because frankly, assigning an SQL injection kind of vulnerabilities to a senior developer may not increase their awareness. On the other hand, if you assign a more advanced and real vulnerability that particular developer will have different response for sure. And finally, I want to discuss the customization. I believe that the generative AI will solve this customization in the near future, but having a customizable platform around your metrics can give you an extra power, because since the security may vary because of the business context, this ability to customize the output maybe the visualization, maybe the dashboard and everything will give you an extra power. And because you don't really know, you may not know what kind of hidden information might be useful for some teams or for some organizations. So how to use those metrics to increase the awareness or to engage the leadership. Again, I try to reduce this number into 4 pillars. The first one of visualization of data. The data and dashboards are form of communication, and if you can visualize the data in an easy manner, in an understandable manner, this will increase the awareness of that organizations dramatically. So that's why data visualization or BI tools is super important to increase the awareness, the management buy-in from the upper management. The second one is identifying the key metrics. Again, because of or according to your business metrics or business needs, your approach should be slightly different than the other one. But if you know the baseline, if you know the key metrics, and you can build your program over that, and this is usually our approach as well, and it's also my personal approach. I usually start with the most important key metric of the organization and try to increase my coverage using automation and orchestration capabilities. And this is how we set up and distribute our security approach within the organizations. I mentioned this before, but the collaboration is super important in the security, because the application security, as security engineers, we need to enable this process with the developers. We need developer support. Developers should be a part of the security program. However, if you approach developers as a blocker instead of enabler, then the friction will increase, and this is not going to be a good approach for both of the parties. So that's why we believe that security is a teamwork, and as you communicate regularly with other stakeholders, you can find your way in your application security program, and you can increase the overall security posture within the organization. And finally, if you can demonstrate the ROI, it's already a win. If you can calculate the risk, and if you can assign a monetary value, it is possible to show the ROI, and you can use your data, your metrics, to show this ROI. The vulnerability burn chart, the remediation metrics, and everything can be utilized from that manner. So you try to create try to assign a monetary value for each vulnerabilities and for development effort. And if you can calculate those, you know that how much time you spent to fix a particular vulnerability, and if you can reduce this number, this is a win. Long story short, what we can do is that those are the key takeaways. The first item that I suggest to everyone is ability to calculate risk. Risk is because organizations, they don't care for vulnerabilities, they care about risks. So that's why on your system, you should be able to show the risk, and you should be able to compare risk within the projects, applications, product, maybe the organization's business unit, etc. So that's why the calculation risk is one of the most important aspects of a successful application security program, which you can use this to get support from other stakeholders. We are living in the data-driven world. Having the raw data, having the metrics and everything should be used to increase better decision-making processes. Again, automation and the new computing power should be used but we strongly believe that you should use metrics to fine-tune your flows, and this is how we can get the support because once you show something, everyone will. Once you show something, once you prove that there is a flaw on this system, you can get the support that you need, not from your management, but from other stakeholders as well. And finally, building trust is one of the maybe the most important aspect of to get the support for your application security program. The least performing security programs or bad security programs shows us that security teams they just when they lose their trust, it is getting hard for them for all the other teams to build that trust again. So as a security engineer, use your dashboards, your metrics to get the trust from other stakeholders. And that's actually it. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even email us. And thank you for GitGuardian for this wonderful event. I hope I can help with to build a better security program for you all.